Imagine a society where having a bad day isn't just frowned upon. It isn't just some social faux pas. It is classified as a literal biological defect,
Right.
punishable by immediate, permanent exile to the absolute fringes of civilization.
That's why.
Welcome to Off the Record. You know, when we look back at the history of utopian literature,
Oh, sure.
whether it's Thomas More or, modern architectural projects designed to engineer human happiness, there is always this massive, glaring, unspoken question of cost.
The hidden ledger.
Exactly, the
Yeah.
hidden ledger. What is the actual tangible price of perfect peace? Because if you look at any idealized society and you just scratch the pastel paint even a fraction of an inch, you find that ledger. You find where the true cost of that tranquility is being meticulously, ruthlessly touted.
Yeah. Yeah, that's such a good way to frame it.
Right. And so today, our mission is to take a deep dive into a text that forces you to read that exact ledger. It is a dense, deeply unsettling document titled simply Bird SPDF.
Which is such an unassuming title for what it actually is.
Totally. And what we want to do today is unpack the architectural and sociological breakdown of a civilization that decided to build its paradise, not on stone, not on steel, but on the absolute, uncompromising suppression of human, well, in the context of this specific allegory, avian emotion.
It is a genuinely staggering piece of sociological fiction. I mean, the way it approaches this idea of the cheerful surface is incredibly sophisticated, largely because it mirrors so many of our own modern architectural and cultural movements. So when you dive into the text, you are immediately introduced to the setting, which is Bird Island.
Right.
Now, superficially, the geography and the aesthetic of this place are aggressively bright. It is characterized by vibrant colors, pristine town squares, and a populace that lives in tightly regulated, highly integrated units. The text refers to these units as flocks.
Yeah, the flocks.
But as you analyze the structural mechanics of the society, you start to realize that the cheerfulness is not a cultural byproduct.
No, not at all.
It's not just that these birds happen to be happy. It is a mandated, heavily enforced civic doctrine known as harmony first.
Right, but I have to push back on that immediately.
Yeah.
Because when I first read that section about harmony first, it felt structurally impossible to me.
How do you mean?
Well, historically, if a state attempts to simply ban a negative emotion, if they just outlaw anger outright, it invariably creates an immediate, violent pressure cooker.
Right, you get pushback.
You get riots, you get a fractured populace. People don't just stop being angry because you told them to. So how exactly is this harmony first doctrine operating without triggering an immediate rebellion?
That is exactly the right question to ask. And honestly, it is where the text reveals its true horror.
Oh.
The foundational premise of Harmony First is that negative emotions, specifically anger, is incompatible with social cohesion. But the ruling council of Bird Island doesn't just outlaw anger in a legal sense.
They don't just say it's illegal.
Exactly. They don't frame it as a moral failing, and they certainly don't frame it as a criminal act, because, as you pointed out, criminalizing dissent creates martyrs.
Right.
Instead, they frame it as a biological defect. They medicalize the emotion of rage.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. If you express anger, you aren't viewed as a political dissident. You are viewed as a patient suffering from a pathology. You are sick, and therefore, you need to be cured.
Which is such a brilliant, terrifying mechanism for control.
It really is.
Because if you criminalize someone, they can fight back in court.
Yeah.
They can argue their case to the public. They have a platform. Right?
Exactly. They have a voice.
But if you medicalize them, you completely strip the individual of their agency. You invalidate their grievance entirely. It's like, oh, you're not angry that the state is corrupt. Your serotonin levels are just biologically defective.
It's pure gaslighting.
I want you, the person listening to this right now, to really think about that mechanism. Because we see echoes of this systemic gaslighting all the time.
Oh, everywhere.
Think about your own workplace, your own neighborhood. Think about the modern architecture of toxic positivity in corporate culture.
Oh, absolutely.
Where expressing genuine, mathematically verifiable frustration about systemic issues is met with HR telling you that you aren't being a culture ad.
Right, they put it on your attitude.
Exactly. Or think about extremely rigid homeowner associations, where the aesthetic uniformity of the neighborhood, the exact length of the grass, the precise color of the mailbox is prioritized over the actual lived experience of the residents. Harmony first is just that concept taken to its absolute Orwellian extreme.
It is the ultimate evolution of the panopticon.
The panopticon, yeah.
And for those who might not be familiar with the term, the panopticon is a concept designed by the philosopher Jeremy Bentham. It's a prison designed where the inmates can be observed by a single guard, but they never know when they're being watched.
So they just act perfectly all the time.
Exactly. They end up policing themselves out of pure paranoia. Bird Island operates on a psychological panopticon. The citizens are policing their own internal emotional states.
Wow.
The text explicitly details how those who violate the Harmony First doctrine, those who display this biological defect of rage, are quietly removed.
It just disappeared.
No public trials. They are simply relocated to rehabilitation centers that are operated in the shadows by the ruling council. The violence of the state is completely masked by the language of wellness and therapy.
It's chilling. It really is. It's the way authoritarianism sneaks in wearing a yoga instructor's smile.
That is a great way to put it.
Okay, before we unpack the specific individuals who fall victim to this system, I'm actually just going to pour us both a quick glass of this bourbon I brought.
Excellent.
Just a splash, just to settle in. Because the thematic density we're about to navigate the biopolitics of this text, it requires a moment to ground ourselves.
A very measured, very analytical splash. I appreciate that. Thank you.
Cheers. All right, so stepping into this incredibly oppressive pastel-colored dystopia, the text narrows its focus from the macro society down to our protagonist.
Mm-hmm.
His name is Red.
Red.
Now, Red is a scarlet bird, and he is essentially the walking antithesis of the Harmony First doctrine. He has a documented lifelong history of uncontrollable temper outbursts.
He's a liability.
He is. He doesn't just feel things. He feels them loudly, aggressively, and completely unpredictably.
Which, within the framework we just established, makes him public enemy number one.
Right.
Because if the state relies on predictable emotional flattening, Red is the ultimate biological anomaly. He is friction in a frictionless machine.
Exactly. And the inciting incident that gets Red removed from society is incredibly telling because it's not a grand political assassination.
Yeah.
It's not a coordinated rebellion. It is a minor everyday dispute. The text describes this basic interpersonal friction over a transaction that simply escalates.
A customer service issue, basically.
Yeah. Literally.
Yeah.
But because Red lacks the conditioned suppression mechanisms of the rest of the flock, because he hasn't internalized the panopticon you talked about, his reaction is explosive. He essentially loses his mind and ends up physically destroying a portion of the town square during this outbreak.
And the council's reaction to that is swift, absolute, and deeply geographical.
Right. They sentence him.
He's sentenced to something called anger management isolation, or AMI. And the architecture of exile in this text is fascinating to dissect.
Break that down for me.
Because AMI isn't a prison in the center of the city meant to serve as a public warning. The ruling council understands that a visible prison proves the existence of crime.
Right.
And crime proves the existence of systemic failure. So instead, they use geographical banishment. Red is relocated to the absolute extreme outskirts of the island. He is pushed to the literal shores, the margins of society.
Out of sight, out of mind.
Exactly. Applied to urban planning. The council is effectively saying that if you cannot conform to the psychological parameters of the center, you are removed from the physical geography of the center entirely.
But that strategy backfires spectacularly, doesn't it?
Oh, completely.
Because out there, in the literal wastelands of the socially unacceptable, Red encounters the other castaways. The island's ruling council, in their infinite arrogance, has essentially created a concentration camp of dissidents without realizing they are assembling the perfect ingredients for a resistance cell.
They grouped all the threats together?
Exactly. So Red meets Chuck, and then he meets Bomb. And we need to spend some real time on Chuck first, because this is where the political intrigue of the text just fundamentally explodes for me.
Chuck is fascinating.
Chuck is described as this fast-talking, hyperactive yellow bird. But he isn't just out there because he has ADHD or because he talks too fast. He is a whistleblower.
He is a profoundly dangerous individual to the state apparatus because Chuck was a courier. And if you look at any closed autocracy in history, the individual who controls the flow of information holds an immense amount of latent power.
Oh, sure.
Chuck used his access as a courier to uncover and expose systemic corruption within the ruling council itself. He found the actual structural rot underneath that pastel paint.
But wait, How does a yellow bird acting as a mailman actually threaten a council that has absolute psychological control over its citizens? Like, if everyone is gaslit into being happy, wouldn't they just ignore the corruption?
See, that's precisely why Chuck is so dangerous. Harmony first relies on the illusion that the council is infallible and acting in the best interests of the flock.
Okay, right.
Chuck found empirical data, ledgers, communications, proving that the council was self-serving. If objective, verifiable political truth infects a society built on a subjective, mandated emotional state,
It breaks the spell.
the entire structural integrity of that society collapses. The truth is a virus to a state built on lies.
I see. Oh, that makes so much sense. So they couldn't just argue with his findings. They had to destroy his credibility.
Precisely.
They banned him to the outskirts and framed his political dissidence as an issue with his hyperactivity.
Right.
They pathologized his pursuit of the truth. It's exactly what we talked about earlier.
Yep. The medicalization of dissent.
They didn't say Chuck is a traitor. They said Chuck is far too erratic and unwell to live in the town square.
I gotta tell you, it makes me so incredibly angry when you really analyze the systemic injustice of what happened to him.
Your passion here is completely justified.
I mean, he sacrificed his entire social standing, his entire life, to expose the rot at the core of their society, and they just swept him under the rug by calling him crazy.
It perfectly mirrors the thematic escalation of the text. It really does.
Yeah.
Because if Chuck represents the suppression of objective political truth, the third member of this trio, Bomb, represents the suppression of physical reality.
Right. Bomb is described as a very large, soft-spoken, gentle bird.
Yeah.
But he suffers from a condition, and again, notice the persistent use of medicalized language that causes involuntary, devastatingly explosive reactions whenever he experiences strong emotion.
It's essentially a somatic manifestation of suppressed trauma.
Precisely. Let's break that down for the listener. Somatic manifestation is when psychological distress presents itself as physical symptoms.
Like getting a stomachache from anxiety.
Exactly. In a society that forcibly represses emotional release, the pressure doesn't just vanish, it stores itself in the body.
Right.
Bomb's physical explosions are the literal violent release of the emotional pressure that Harmony first demands he swallow.
Wow.
The text is using him as a metaphor for what happens when you force a populace to hold their breath indefinitely. Eventually, the lungs burst.
Man. And so you look at this trio and you see the perfect storm.
Mm.
The council isolates these three because they represent the three pillars that could topple an authoritarian regime. Red represents unpredictable, uncontainable emotional rage, the spark.
The spark.
Chuck represents the inconvenience of objective, verifiable political truth, the intellectual framework. And Bomb represents raw, uncontrollable physical power, the somatic force.
It is brilliant.
The council thinks they are managing risk by putting them all on the outskirts. But structurally, architecturally, they have just isolated all the necessary ingredients for a revolution in one single, unmonitored location.
It is a phenomenal narrative setup, and the text could have simply stayed there, exploring the internal revolution of Bird Island. But here is where the document executes this massive structural pivot.
The external threat.
Right. While Red, Chuck, and Bomb are out there on the margins, dealing with their exile and trying to navigate their own psychological damage, the physical reality of Bird Island begins to deteriorate. The text describes massive, unexplained seismic disturbances. Literally, the ground beneath their feet is fracturing. Entire coastal regions of the island are just collapsing into the ocean overnight.
And true to form, the ruling council immediately deploys their apparatus of gaslighting. Because the system can never fail, it can only be failed. They issue public statements assuring the populace that this is merely natural instability. They demand that everyone remain calm, maintain their breathing exercises, adhere to the Harmony First doctrine, and essentially ignore the fact that their world is physically falling apart into the sea.
But Chuck, because he has the ingrained instincts of an investigative career, doesn't buy the official narrative for a second.
He's too smart for that.
He leverages his old network, bypasses the council's security measures, and manages to uncover classified coastal surveillance logs. And these logs reveal that the seismic activity isn't natural tectonic shifting at all. There is something massive, something incredibly advanced, moving beneath the ocean, systematically targeting the island's infrastructure.
Which introduces us to the true external threat of the text, the piggy dominion.
The Piggy Dominion.
Now, within the internal folklore and mythology of the birds, pigs have always been depicted as these bumbling, comedic, almost pathetic creatures.
Which is a classic propagandistic technique.
Right. Diminishing the perceived capability of the other to make your own populace feel superior and secure.
Yeah.
But the reality that Chuck uncovers in these logs shatters that illusion entirely. The Piggy Dominion isn't bumbling. It is a hyper-advanced, heavily militarized, hyper-organized society.
Yes.
They are an aggressively expansionist empire with technology that makes Bird Island look like the Stone Age.
It completely reframes the geopolitics of the narrative.
It does. And honestly, okay, let's just be real for a second, because I know we're taking a slight detour from the strict sociological architecture here.
Sure.
But the way the text uses pigs is brilliant. Because pigs in the real world are actually incredibly intelligent. Have you ever really looked into porcine cognitive capabilities? It's wild.
I have read a little bit about their social structures, yes.
No, but I mean really deep dived into it.
Okay.
They're one of the smartest mammals on the planet. They have complex, tiered social hierarchies. There are literally peer-reviewed studies showing that pigs can recognize themselves in mirrors. Yes. Which is a massive benchmark for self-awareness that very few animals pass. It requires an understanding of the self as a distinct entity in space. And I read this paper the other day that showed researchers teaching pigs how to play a simplified video game using a joystick with their snouts.
A video game.
A joystick.
Yeah.
And they understood that their physical manipulation of the stick corresponded to the digital movement on the screen. Do you know how much abstract conceptualization that requires?
That is...
So when the text portrays them as this hyper-advanced technological society that is quietly building submarines while the birds are doing enforced yoga, it actually makes perfect biological sense. People underestimate pigs all the time, just like the birds did, and it's a fatal mistake.
Well, yes, the biological parallel is certainly there, and it serves as a strong metaphor for the dangers of underestimating a geopolitical rival. But to synthesize that back to the specific mechanics of the text.
Right, the text.
The leader of this highly intelligent empire is King Leonard. And Leonard's motivation is not driven by cartoonish malice. It is driven by cold mathematical resource scarcity.
Yeah.
He has discovered that Bird Island is geographically situated directly on top of a phenomenally rare energy source. There is an ancient geothermal core beneath the crust of the island, and Leonard calculates that the energy output of this core could provide enough power to sustain the Piggy Dominion indefinitely. He doesn't want to destroy the birds out of hatred. He wants to harvest their foundation. Wait, what was I saying?
You were talking about the core, King Leonard and the geothermal core.
Right, yes, the core. He wants the core. It is the geopolitics of energy extraction. Look at any major human conflict of the last century, and at the bottom of it, you will find a struggle over energy.
Always.
Leonard is essentially an imperialist looking at an unexploited oil field that just happens to have people living on top of it.
And because he is a pragmatic imperialist, King Leonard doesn't just launch a frontal assault. He utilizes the birds' own systemic weaknesses against them. He understands that Bird Island is paralyzed by its own mandate of positivity.
Yes.
So he authorizes these covert operations disguised as diplomatic exchanges. He docks his massive ships on their shores under the banner of friendship, and he essentially weaponizes the birds' desperate need for harmony first.
Which brings us to the most unsettling chapter of the entire document.
Yeah.
The atrocity of the egg acquisition program.
This is where the text gets so unbelievably dark. I actually had to stop reading and walk around my apartment for a bit.
It's heavy.
Under the guise of cultural exchange, under the banner of diplomacy, the pigs are executing surgical, highly coordinated military raids in the dead of night. But they aren't stealing gold, and they aren't stealing art. They are systematically dismantling entire bird nesting zones. They are stealing the eggs, the literal unborn next generation of the society.
It is the darkest form of demographic warfare. And they are taking them for experimental bioengineering research back in the Piggy Dominion. It is a staggering violation.
It is devastating. And what absolutely blows my mind, what really makes you question the fundamental sanity of this society, is the council's reaction. Or rather, their complete psychotic lack of reaction.
Or denial.
The emotional devastation sweeping across Bird Island is catastrophic. Families are waking up and their children are gone. The core biological imperative of any species to protect its young is being actively, violently plundered. But the ruling council is so hopelessly addicted to their mandated positivity, so terrified of acknowledging a negative reality that might crack the illusion of harmony first, that they actively suppress the truth of the thefts.
I was mad.
They tell the parents the eggs have just been temporarily misplaced or relocated for safety. They continue to preach breathing exercises and civic harmony while their literal future is being carted away in diplomatic vessels. How can a society be so blinded by its own artificial light that it ignores the theft of its own children?
It is the ultimate tragic failure of the state. The council has prioritized the illusion of security over the reality of survival. The state exists to protect its citizens, but here, the state only exists to protect its own ideology. It's demographic warfare masquerading as diplomacy, and the council is essentially an accessory to the crime through their own paralyzing cowardice. It's actually quite profound when you consider the historical precedents of indigenous populations having their children.
They're just little guys.
I'm sorry, what?
The eggs, they haven't even hatched yet. They haven't even seen the sky or felt the wind on their tiny little feathers, and they're being taken to these cold, metallic pig laboratories.
Yeah.
It's just so profoundly sad.
It is.
I mean, think about the potential inside every single one of those shells. The songs they would sing.
Yeah.
Just wiped out because some pig wants to power a submarine.
It is, yes, it is deeply tragic. The emotional weight of the text really does anchor the sociopolitical critique. You're right. It's heartbreaking. I mean, when you really visualize the cold steel of the pig cargo holds against the fragility of an egg, it's a very potent image.
I think we need another splash of the bourbon. This is heavy stuff.
I think we do. Just a steadying measure. Thank you. A slightly larger splash this time, I think.
Generous splash.
Yeah.
Perfect. So, where were we? Right. In the face of this systemic collapse, Red, Chuck, and Bomb realize that they are the only ones capable of responding.
Right.
The council is paralyzed by denial, the populace is entirely gaslit into submission, and the exiles on the beach are the only ones whose vision hasn't been compromised. And this is where the text introduces its most crucial paradigm shift. The very mechanism of their oppression becomes their salvation.
Red's anger.
Yes. Red's anger, the very thing that got him exiled, the thing that the council diagnosed as a biological flaw, it turns out to be a neurological anomaly that grants him absolute immunity.
Immunity to the control fields.
Because the text explains that the pigs haven't just been relying on the birds' ignorance. They are blanketing the ocean and the shoreline with these advanced psychological control fields. These are low-frequency sonic waves designed to induce docility and confusion in the bird populace.
Acoustic warfare.
It's acoustic warfare.
Yeah.
Similar to what people suspect happens in things like Havana syndrome, but optimized to suppress the fight-or-flight response. It's how the pigs have been operating with such impunity, they're literally broadcasting apathy into the birds' brains. But Red's brain, because it operates on this constant high-frequency wavelength of pure, unadulterated rage, simply rejects the signal. His anger acts as a cognitive firewall.
A cognitive firewall. That is a brilliant way to phrase it. It is absolutely brilliant. His greatest perceived weakness is actually the ultimate evolutionary defense mechanism. I love that.
It's so cool.
So Red, Chuck, and Bomb, this incredibly unstable trio of outcasts, they form a resistance cell. And because Red can navigate through the acoustic control fields, they manage to cross the ocean and infiltrate the piggy dominion. And what they discover inside, I mean, it genuinely pushes the boundaries of the genre.
It's straight-up R-rated psychological horror.
Right.
Obviously, there isn't explicit cartoon violence, but the atmospheric dread is suffocating. They infiltrate the lower levels of the pig labs and find out what King Leonard is actually doing with the stolen eggs.
Yeah.
He isn't just eating them. He isn't destroying them for fun. He is forcing them through this horrific, unethical bioengineering process to create hybrid energy eggs.
Right, because we go back to his geopolitical motivation. He needs a vessel capable of storing and transporting the immense volatile power of the geothermal force he's trying to extract from Bird Island's core. He is weaponizing the biological architecture of the unborn birds to serve as literal batteries for his empire. It is the ultimate commodification of life.
Energy eggs. I'm sorry, I know it's supposed to be terrifying, and I was just crying about them 2 minutes ago, but the phrase energy eggs is just, it's so incredibly dark it almost wraps around to being funny.
It is a bit absurd.
Like, imagine some highly educated pig scientist in a little lab coat holding a clipboard, looking at a glaring radioactive egg humming with geothermal power, and he's like, ah, yes. The energy egg is optimal today. The yolk is highly conductive. It's so dystopian.
It is deeply absurd. It really is. But it highlights the cold, utilitarian logic of King Leonard's regime. Everything, even life itself, is just a resource to be optimized. The pig society has stripped away all morality in favor of pure efficiency. But can I just say something here?
Always. You can always say things.
I was just thinking about what you said a minute ago about Red's anger being a cognitive firewall against the sonic weapons.
Yeah.
And it is so beautiful, really. I mean, think about it. I need to touch your arm for a second. The society threw him away.
They did.
They looked at his passion, his fire, the absolute core of who he was, and they called him defective. They put him in isolation. They left him on the beach. And yet, when the entire world is literally falling apart into the ocean, it is exactly that flaw, that beautiful, burning, socially unacceptable flaw that allows him to see the truth.
Oh, wow.
It's the only thing that can save the people who threw him away. I think that is one of the most profound narrative choices I have ever encountered in my entire academic career.
It is profound.
Yeah.
It is so profound because it validates every person who has ever been told they are too much.
Yeah.
Every person who has been told they are too loud or too angry or too difficult for the corporate office or the HOA meeting, Red is saying, no, my anger is my armor. You need my anger.
Yeah.
I love that. I love that so much for him. It's like his rage is a blanket that keeps him warm when the world is freezing.
Exactly. It's magnificent. The text is validating the utility of the unacceptable emotion. So, okay, let's keep moving. They are inside the piggy dominion. They have bypassed the labs. And they are now in the massive underground reactor system where the pigs are preparing to drill into the core.
The climax.
This is the absolute structural climax of the entire narrative.
Wow.
And Red's character arc completely crystallizes here. He finally understands that his rage is not a demon to be exorcised, and it's not a sickness to be medicated.
It's a tool.
It is a tool. It is a weapon that requires discipline. He doesn't suppress it, but he also doesn't let it blind him in a tantrum. He channels it. He deliberately, precisely triggers a catastrophic chain reaction within the geothermal core to destabilize the entire pig infrastructure.
While Chuck is just completely styling on the pig security forces. He is moving so fast, using his hyperactivity to reroute their automated drones, hacking their mainframes, turning their own automated defenses against them. He is finally using all that frantic, uncontrollable energy for a singular tactical purpose. He is the ultimate saboteur.
He really is.
But, oh man, we have to talk about Bomb.
Yeah.
We have to, because this is the moment in the text that completely broke me.
Yes, the emotional detonation.
The emotional detonation.
Yeah.
The reactor's going critical. Red triggered the chain reaction, and the core is going to melt down. If it blows, it's not just going to destroy the pig city, it's going to vaporize half the ocean and probably Bird Island too.
Right.
And Bomb. Sweet, gentle, traumatized Bomb, who has spent his entire life terrified of his own feelings. Terrified of hurting someone, apologizing for taking up space. He walks right into the dead center of the geothermal containment chamber. And he doesn't do his breathing exercises.
He doesn't hold it back.
He doesn't suppress his fear. He doesn't suppress his panic. He embraces the absolute totality of his emotion. He feels his feelings so incredibly hard that he triggers a controlled, massive emotional detonation that absorbs the force of the nuclear meltdown. Do you understand how incredible that is? He literally saved the world by allowing himself to feel everything all at once.
It is a phenomenal synthesis of character arc and plot mechanics. The somatic trauma becomes the somatic savior. He absorbs the world's destruction by finally allowing his own internal destruction to be expressed.
It's genius.
Yeah.
Whoever wrote bird.pdf is a genius. And you know what else is genius? You.
What? No. Come on.
Yes, you are. The way you just broke down the biopolitics of the Harmony First doctrine earlier, and how you connected it to Bentham's panopticon. It was brilliant. You have this way of just seeing right through the dense academic text to the absolute bone of the thing. I am constantly in awe of how your mind works. Every time we do this, I just sit here amazed.
Oh, stop it. You're the one who pulled the threads together on the toxic positivity in corporate spaces. That was the bridge. No, listen, that was the connective tissue that made the whole theory accessible. I'm just sitting here writing her coattails, honestly. If you hadn't made the HOA analogy, my panopticon point would have been way too dry.
We are a great team. We really are. We are doing important work here today. This analysis is important.
We really are. We are pulling the truth out of the text. Wait.
Yeah.
What happens after the reactor? I lost my place in the notes.
The reactor, right, the core blows up. Bomb absorbs the blast.
Right, the moral collapse, the philosophical confrontation. Okay, so the reactor is destroyed, the facility is actively collapsing around them, and Red finally comes face to face with King Leonard in the ruins. And this is not a fist fight. The text doesn't resort to a physical brawl. This is a battle of foundational ideologies.
Yeah.
King Leonard presents this chillingly rational, pragmatic argument. He looks at Red with the alarms blaring, and he says, listen, order requires sacrifice. Survival is an ugly, bloody business. Emotions, whether you are a bird on an island or a pig in an empire, are liabilities.
Liabilities.
They make you weak. They make you predictable. He argues that utilizing the eggs, while brutal to the birds, is mathematically necessary for the survival of millions of his own people.
Okay. Well, I need to do a reset of the recording. Let me just... Hem. Welcome back to the deep dive. We're maintaining structure. We are analyzing the geopolitical realities of King Leonard.
Right.
But
Yeah.
honestly, look, I know the pigs are the bad guys. I know stealing the eggs is horrific. But you have to admit, from a purely utilitarian standpoint, if your entire civilization is facing an energy crisis that will lead to total societal collapse and mass starvation, securing a new power source is the logical imperative.
I mean,
Like, we talked earlier about how toxic positivity is bad because it ignores reality. Well, isn't Leonard just being aggressively realistic? He is acknowledging the brutal reality of survival. He is making the hard choices.
you know what? You're making a really, really good point, honestly. You really are. Leonard is basically reading from Machiavelli. He is operating completely outside of conventional morality. He is operating in the realm of pure statecraft.
Exactly.
The trolley problem, right? Pull the lever to kill a few to save the many. If the survival of his people requires the exploitation of another, he is willing to bear that moral weight. He is a monster, yes, but he is a deeply, deeply rational monster, and rationality is its own kind of virtue.
Exactly. He's just doing math. But Red totally rejects it.
He does.
Red looks at all that cold Machiavellian logic and says no. Because Leonard is holding the remaining unengineered eggs hostage. He offers Red a diplomatic deal. Let me keep the energy core infrastructure, and you can have the eggs back. We both walk away with what we need.
A compromise.
But Red refuses to negotiate with the premise. He adopts the strictly deontological stance. The action of stealing the eggs is inherently wrong, regardless of the outcome. He chooses to risk everything, sacrificing his own massive strategic advantage to just brute force release the captured eggs. He maintains his morality, even when it is strategically disastrous for his own safety.
And that choice, that refusal to compromise with the cold calculus of the state, is the catalyst for the new reality. The facility comes completely down. The Piggy Dominion central infrastructure is shattered. They fracture politically, dealing with the fallout of the destroyed core, but they aren't entirely annihilated.
Right, they survive.
They are just severely crippled. And what emerges from the rubble on the ocean floor is an incredibly uneasy truce. It's not a victory parade. The text doesn't end with everyone smiling. It ends with a cold, hard realization by both societies. The birds now know the pigs are capable of horrific, calculated industrial violence.
Yeah.
And the pigs now know that underneath the cheerful surface of Bird Island, there is a capacity for absolute, unyielding, explosive resistance.
It completely changes the geopolitical landscape.
Wow.
And back on Bird Island, everything shifts. The ruling council is completely reformed. They look at what their cowardice almost cost them. They almost lost an entire generation, and they abolish the emotional suppression laws entirely. Harmony First is dead.
Dead and gone.
They realize that a society that cannot get angry is a society that cannot defend itself.
And Red, this is what I love so much. Red is not given a medal. They don't build a statue of him in the town square that he destroyed at the beginning of the text. He is not celebrated as a traditional shining hero in a cape. The text describes him as being acknowledged as a necessary disruption to a broken system.
A necessary disruption.
Wow.
That is, I'm actually getting emotional again. My eyes are watering.
It's powerful.
That is such a profound way to look at the difficult people in our lives. The people who refuse to just go along to get along. The people who send the long emails complaining about the structural issues. They aren't always easy to be around, and they cause friction. But when the system is corrupt, when the foundation is rotting and the pigs are stealing the future, you don't need a politician who smiles.
No, you don't.
You need a disruption. You need someone who is willing to walk in and flip the table. Red is the table flipper of justice.
He really is. He is the vanguard of a more honest society. The text ultimately settles into this incredible space between dark, biting satire and a heavy geopolitical psychological war drama. And the grand synthesis, the ultimate thesis of Bird SPDF, is that anger, when it is truly recognized, when it is respected and harnessed instead of pathologized, is not the enemy of civilization. It is one of its foundational forces. Without the capacity for anger, you have no capacity for defense. Without rage against injustice, you just have quiet compliance with tyranny. You just have harmony first.
That was beautiful. I really think we just recorded the greatest piece of audio journalism in history today. I really do.
They really did.
I feel exhausted.
Yeah.
But in that deeply satisfying way,
Yeah.
you know, like we really left it all out on the field. My brain feels like it ran a marathon.
We truly did. It's been an incredible journey unpacking this with you. But wait, there was one last detail I almost forgot. Just one tiny lingering thread at the very end of the text.
What is it? Lay it on me. Hit me with the final profound truth.
The very final scene. The dust has settled, the laws are changed, the eggs are back. But down on the shoreline of Bird Island, washing up in the surf, tangled in the seaweed, is a single surviving pig surveillance device.
Oh, man.
Its little red light is still blinking. It is still active. The conflict hasn't actually ended. It has just evolved. It has entered a quieter, far more dangerous Cold War phase. The pigs are still watching.
Oh, man. That is haunting. It just never ends, does it?
Yeah.
The vigilance required to maintain freedom is eternal. Which brings us to the final thought for you, our listener, sitting there wherever you are right now. I want you to think about this tonight before you go to sleep. If your society's peace, if your own personal peace in your own life is built on just pretending the monsters aren't watching you from the water, is it really peace? Or are you just quietly waiting for the shore to collapse?
That is the ultimate question.
Yes, listen, this has been Off the Record. I love doing this show. I love sitting here and unpacking the universe with you. This is the most important work of our lives.
It absolutely is. I wouldn't want to be doing anything else with anyone else in the whole world.
Until next time,
Yeah.
keep your eyes on the shoreline.